So since arriving at the University of Georgia, our next guest has been named National Coach of the Year 4 times, SEC Coach of the Year 3 times. He's led his team to 23 NCAA tournaments, 5 Final Fours, 7 SEC regular season titles, 4 SEC tournament championships, and 21 20-win seasons. Of course, the pinnacle of his career has to be joining the Tuesday edition of Game On with Katie B. Davis. I am, of course, talking about Coach Andy Landers. Coach, thanks so much for being here with us tonight.
Katie B., you nailed it. This is the highlight.
Well, I am most definitely glad to hear that. Even if it is a little blow and smoke, I'm very glad to hear that. Excited for you and your program, headed to Italy this Sunday to do some exhibition games. What brought this trip on? First time for your program doing anything like this. Why now?
Yeah. Well, hey, all my former players have asked me that. Why now? You didn't take us. Why are you going? Had 2 former assistants. I'm down in Augusta as we speak, wrapping up summer recruiting this evening, and had 2 former assistants who played for me, Sharon Ball and Susie Gardner, asked the same question today. Hey, why'd you do this? For years, my assistant coaches have tried to get me to do it, asked me to do it. And, I looked at the makeup of this team a couple of years ago and knew that we were going to be very young, and that this might be the right time, to take a group over there, and get the full experience. We could have taken teams over there that we knew were going to be good, that we knew how they were going to be. This is a team coming up next year that I'm not sure how good we're going to be. I don't know. I'm not saying we're not. I just don't know. So it gives us an opportunity to go over and get together as a basketball team, as players, as teammates, and also to experience some competition, and, of course, the cultural effect on top of that.
When you say you don't know how good this group is going to be next year, obviously you're taking into account the ladies coming back from last year's 19 and 10 campaign, but also the added talent. So what do you hope, if you could, the number one thing that you hope your girls learn on this trip or gain from this trip, what do you want that to be?
Well, from a skill standpoint, I'd like to see us pass and shoot. That once we take the floor, I'd like to see us pass the ball well, and I'd like to see us shoot the ball better than we shot it last year. We have a lot of players coming back from a year ago who did not shoot the ball percentage-wise the way we need to shoot the basketball, and we got a lot of good shots. So I would like to see that. Obviously, we're all anxious to see. We have 4 freshmen who will be on the trip with us, to see what they're going to bring to the table. What might they add that makes this team better? And then the other thing I'd like to see where the improvement has taken place in the off season. We've had a number of young ladies in the gym a lot. They've done a lot of work on their own, and I'm anxious to see how that it comes, how that's going to play out once we take the floor as a basketball team. Have they gotten better, or has it just been time in the gym?
UGA women's basketball coach Andy Landers joining Game On. When you say about your program, when you've gotten to the point in your program where a 19 and 10 season is subpar by your standards, that means that you have built a really great program, at least in my mind. You talked about the off-season work that your young ladies did, and I'm sure that you and your staff were integral in at least getting them started in the gym. But was there any frustration after last season, and do you think that has manifested itself, like you just said, in your girls working harder than maybe they would have if you all had another 20-win season?
Yeah, I think you're on to something. I think our players, as we went through the year last year, thought everyththing's going okay. I think they thought everything's going okay, everything's going to be all right. Because, I think we've been to like 21 straight NCAA tournaments. I think we've been to like 27 or 28 out of 31 NCAA tournaments. So there's an expectation by players that that's what happens when you go to Georgia. You're going to go to Germany, you're going to win 20-something games. You got a chance to get to the Final Four. You got a chance to play for a national championship. Well, that isn't what happens when you come to Georgia. What happens when a player comes to Georgia is they work really, really hard to be a part of something special that can accomplish those kinds of things. Those aren't birthrights. Those are things that are earned. And I think as we got deep into the season and then into the waiting game for the NCAA tournament bids, I think our players started to realize, hey, we may have left some things undone.
Yeah.
We could be disappointed. And then the early exit, we don't do that.
Yeah.
We don't go to the tournament and lose first game. I think that kind of crystallized some of the things that we had been trying to say to them throughout the year. And so consequently, I think there's a certain attitude now among the returning players that we can't let this happen again.
Well, it sounds to me, Coach Landers, like it's the perfect time to take a trip like you are taking, leaving this Sunday for Italy, where they will play a few basketball games. It's a 10-day, 3-game trip, to be exact. Now, I talked with one of your players last week. Rumor has it you made them do school-type projects on the cities you all were going to visit. How did that idea come about?
Well, I could sense a couple of weeks ago that the interest in it, for a year it's been, we're going to Italy. About a month ago, all of a sudden, kids started talking about it. You could sense that there was an interest in it that was starting to bubble a little bit. And I thought to myself, obviously, whether it's athletics or cultural, this should be a learning experience. And maybe to bring the bubbles to a boil, we could do something like this. And so we made assignments to each of our players that they would report prior to a practice session on their particular assignment on a city or a site that we were going to take in for a couple of reasons. One, so that because everybody didn't know where we were going. I've yet to look at an itinerary. I don't know where we're going. But they were able to do that, learn firsthand a little bit more about what it is and where we're going, and something about, and share it with the team. And you could see, there was an interest. Our kids standing there with their mouths hanging open, listening to it. Yeah, good. I got the report tomorrow. They're wanting to share. They're wanting to understand more about Italy and the places that we're going to see, the things that we're going to do. So it's been good.
University of Georgia women's basketball coach Andy Landers on the line with us. I got a couple of more questions, one regarding the trip, and then one, the Georgia athletics department as a whole. Of course, not going to put you on the spot, but just want your take on something. How did you come up with the competition with the All-Star Italy and teams of that nature to play next week over the course of the 10 days? How did that come about?
Well, that's part of a trip, a packet. If you will, a package that we buy. There's actually a couple of people who put these things together, and they take care of all the competition, where you're going to stay, what time you're going to go do what, and they give you some free time in there too. But they handle that because they have the contacts over there. I could have picked up the phone and probably called some people who knew some people who knew some people, and we probably could have got games scheduled. But when we got over there and showed up to play, if the other team didn't show up, I wouldn't have known what to do.
Yeah.
So these guys have everything in place, and I'm confident that in that regard we'll have a good experience. Our players are probably going to be glad that someone else did it, because if I had arranged the competition, I would have played the Italian national team 3 times.
Oh, heavens. Hey, listen, to be the best, you got to beat the best, right?
Hey, and absolutely, when you're in another country and you're having that kind of an experience, and nobody, and moms and dads aren't in the stands, and fans aren't in the stands being judgmental of you, you can get a life going.
I like
have
that.
To read about it in the newspaper, and don't have to listen to KDB talk about it on the radio.
I like that a lot. Always positive here on Game On, though, Coach Landers. Always positive. I mentioned to you prior that I had Erica Ford, a rising senior for you on the show last week, and what a wonderful young lady she was, and I appreciate her being on. But I asked her this question in light of the not so great headlines regarding UGA athletics personnel, we'll say, and the players, and not so great headlines, and some arrests, and of course transfers and things of that nature. I asked her how you kept your program's nose clean, how you mandated that your young ladies don't get in situations like that. And her, reasoning was simple. He shows us all of these examples so that we know to do better. But I want to hear from you. You have been involved with the University of Georgia athletics for many, many years, decades, and have seen the steady decline, or maybe it's that things are covered more. We're not real sure, but seen a steady decline where personal behavior is concerned. How do you keep your program's nose clean, Coach Landers?
Well, it's something that we work at every day, and there isn't one thing that I would point to. But I think the first thing and the most important piece, and this relates to everything that we do, not just our conduct and our behavior off the floor. I discovered a long time ago that if your players know, I didn't say guess or think. If your players know that you care, they will do what you ask them to do. Now, there's going to be a slip up or two, but they're going to do what you ask them to do. So we work really, really hard at that piece, at caring about them as individuals, as students, as athletes, on the floor, off the floor. We care. We know what they're involved in. And they're not always headed in the right direction. And we try to give them some rope. That old saying, give them enough rope to hang themselves. We actually try to give them enough rope to hang themselves. But we keep an eye on them to where when that rope starts to unwind and get close to the end, we reach out and snatch them and go, whoa, you hit it in the wrong direction. You're doing the wrong thing. So the caring piece, I can tell you right now what everybody has and what each one of our players has in each one of their classes. I can give you a pretty close guess as to what our GPA is going to be. We know who their brothers and sisters are. We know we know we're involved, and because we're involved, we can keep some things that we think are bad from happening. Now, the other thing is, make no mistake about it, we have expectations and we have rules about things, and they're real. And our players know that we're not going to play.
Right.
They're not the athletic department's rules. It's our rules, and our rules are really tougher in 9 out of 10 cases. And we don't have a lot of rules, because if you got to have a lot of rules, it means you got unruly players. You signed the wrong kids.
Mm-hmm.
We just have a few, and they're basic. They're the same ones your mom and dad had. They relate to behavior. They relate to who you're with and what you're doing. And hey, let's not complicate it by having a rule about everything. Let's just have 4 or 5, and let's go. So, but at the end of the day, if you break the rule, you may not be talking about running laps. You may not be talking about missing the game. You may be talking about sitting on the front porch at home, because we've done. If I would love I love second chances. But let's face it, most of the time, if a kid's gone so far down the road that they've broken bad, that they've done something really, really bad, they've already had a couple of first and second chances.
Now, that's the truth.
You know, so giving them a second chance at a really bad thing, I don't know that that's necessary. And when I think when our players, I'm only speaking about women's basketball, I think if we did that with our players, that they'd figure that out. Oh, you can really break the rule. You're going to get a second chance. It's happened before. And unfortunately, in college athletics, and it's not unique to the University of Georgia, it's across the board, it's across the country, getting arrested by some sports has kind of become the norm. And it's bad and it's sad, but it has. And how coaches in certain sports across the country get that turned around, I don't know, because it's become the norm. And you know what I want our players talking about is we've never had that happen.
Right.
We've never had that happen. You know, I don't know what would happen to you if you did that, because no one's ever done that.
Well, and let me say, I hope that's a bridge you never have to cross. But I love it, and it's the simplicity of it, Coach Landers. Be mindful of who you are, where you're from, and who you're representing.
Yep.
You know, it's being mindful of those things. And I just, you know, to say that it's never happened in your program, that means you are doing something right. And hopefully it's a bridge that you never have to cross. In fact, you've done a whole lot of things right.
And let me, because I don't deserve any credit. Let me say this. The other piece that I left out that's all important. You spoke to Erica Ford last week. Well, we did a lot of research on Erica Ford when we recruited her. You know, people sometimes come up and ask me, hey, why didn't you send so-and-so? And I realized that so-and-so may have been an unbelievably good player, but I don't want to read about her in the newspaper. No, yeah. I mean, we recruit players who understand what the expectations are. We do research on them, it academic, personal, family. You know, before I can do what I do, first thing I got to know is that I've got a parent or two at home of this particular player before I sign her that's going to have my back if something does happen. And I've got to call her in on the carpet. You know, I don't need somebody that's going to have to play her back. You know, because we're going to get nowhere if I'm trying to discipline her or get someone's attention or lead someone a certain direction. And we got parents out there that don't care if they go in that direction or not. That I'm not going to win that. So the recruiting piece is important.
Yeah, and, you know, it's interesting you bring that up as we wrap up with University of Georgia women's basketball coach Andy Landers, because I think a lot of times, at least where these high-profile sports are concerned, not a lot of times, I'm not going to marginalize folks like that, but many times parents see the stars by their son or daughter's name and think big WNBA, NBA, NFL contract and let them get away with what they want to get away with in college because they have bigger fish to fry down the road. So I love that. About the recruiting. Coach Landers, been a complete honor talking to you. I hope that you will be a friend to the show and come back again soon. And more importantly, I wish you best of luck basketball-wise in Italy, but also that it's a great team bonding experience for you and your girls.
We're going to have a great time, and I so appreciate you having me on tonight. Anytime. You just let me know when you want me on. I love visiting with you.